story. All right, I'm ready.
Oh boy, what was I like when I came to Wooster?
When I first got to Wooster, I think I was a combination of a former high school cheerleader and very, very nerdy.
Sheltered would probably be the best word.
Well, being from Miami, Florida, I was pretty loud.
I was self-assured, a little bossy, and secretly a little bit intimidated by all the freedom.
Impressionable young man, but I wanted to get out of Texas, see a different part of the country.
It was a huge world that opened up for me.
Everybody was doing something different.
Well, I'll tell you about this story. I was a junior, and I wasn't performing very well academically. My IS advisor, Richard Reimer, called me in to meet with him at Calc.
It became apparent to me that a lot of folks here were here because of great personal sacrifice.
They had a come to Jesus meeting, if you will, and just threw it out there on the table and said, "Kid, you're not cutting it."
People had really tried hard, saved money, done a lot of different things to be here. And that, to me, transformed how I approach education.
That was a defining moment for me because I needed that challenge. I needed that wake-up call.
Through Apex, they actually funded me to be able to do my unpaid internship with money.
When I had the experience to be a counselor on the judicial board, it really, really allowed me to identify my own skill set as an advocate.
That was the best experience of my life because I'm still currently working with Usher's New Look, and I got to meet Usher himself, and that was like a moment for me.
I think one of my most transformative experiences at Wooster had to have been doing IS.
My junior IS was about the revolution in Malawi, which is a small country in Eastern Africa, which so happens to be the place where my roommate was from.
Doing that kind of project, that much hard work, original research, working very closely with Professor Mark Weaver.
Becoming more independent through the research program encouraged me to seek new adventures, and that's one of the reasons why I ended up in Japan after I graduated.
I do not fear any challenge. I am not afraid of any kind of hard work or anything new.
What the education, what the community, what the people and the experiences have allowed me to do is essentially change and adapt.
I think the world needs Wooster because the ways that students at Wooster learn, not just the things that they learn, but the ways that they learn, are ways that we know in a research-based way and an outcomes-based way are really, really powerful.
Preparing your students for what's coming next is one of the most important missions, and Worcester's done it beautifully.
It's important that you support Wooster because it gives students like me a chance to prove to the world that we can make it.
This is a terrific opportunity to help us transform the lives of all the students here today and students to come, to really create the change that we want to see in the world. It starts right here with Wooster.
Hold on. Backtrack. Okay.
Everybody in my high school went to schools in Pennsylvania or on the East Coast. So coming to Ohio was exotic.
Worcester opened me to mental diversity.
This is a magical place to really kind of set the course for you.
And if only the whole world operated like the College of Worcester's campus does, I think we would be a much better place.
I really appreciate the education I received during my time at Wooster. I think others deserve the same opportunity.
I feel like Wooster is my family. I would not have thought that I said that in a million years when I first walked in here and went through the arch.
What we're promising is that all of those students will be brought to a place where they can actually step out on the edge of the cliff of new knowledge and jump, and that they'll be able to fly.
And now, direct from the stage of Freelander Theater on the campus of the College of Wooster in exotic Wooster, Ohio. Wooster's Promise Live. Please welcome your hosts for this evening's event, Marissa Adame, class of 2017, and Aubrey McCoy, class of 2020.
thank you so much for joining us, and welcome to Wooster's Promise Live. I'm Marissa Adame.
And I'm Aubrey McCoy.
Tonight, we're celebrating a huge year for the College of Wooster. Not only is it our 150th anniversary, it's also the first year of our new president, Sarah Bolton.
In addition to all of these wonderful things, we've all come out to celebrate the launch of our newest campaign, Wooster's Promise, as it is our new campaign for the next 150 years.
Tonight, we'll hear from many parts of our community, faculty, students, staff, and alumni, as well as President Bolton and the Wooster's campaign chair, Blake Moore. Thank you so much for joining us.
We'd also like to hear from you, our live audience, as well as our streaming audience, as we have Sally set up in our Facebook Live command post. Wave hello, Sally. But really what Wooster's Promise is all about is all of the things that come together to make Wooster, Wooster. So we'd like for you, our live audience, as well as our viewing audience, to share with us what makes Wooster, Wooster to you.
And Blake, thank you so much for that lovely introduction. Why don't we go ahead and start with you? What makes Wooster, Wooster?
Sure, and so many things I could talk about, but I'll just talk about two things that make Wooster, Wooster for me. The first is easy. I met my wife here 40 years ago, and having spent the last 40 years with the love of my life, Wooster will always be a special place for that reason. And since we're live, I get to wish her happy birthday today. So, happy birthday, Cynthia Weiler. The other thing that makes Wooster, Wooster for me is, the way I put it is this way. When I showed up as an 18-year-old kid in 1976 on this campus, I would call myself a good learner. I was a good learner. I knew how to learn things, facts, subjects. By the time I left 4 years later, I was a thinker. I knew how to think. I knew how to think about different ideas. I learned from people, faculty, took different subjects. And so when I left the College of Wooster, I was much more than just a good learner. I was a good thinker, and that also made me believe I could do anything I wanted to do.
That's incredible. Thank you so much, Blake. Aubrey?
So we are celebrating the launch of Wooster's Promise on Senior Research Symposium Day, which has been phenomenal. And so independent study here at the College of Wooster is central to who we are as a community, as a culture, and it's one of the primary things that makes Wooster, Wooster. Independent study is the heart of a Wooster education.
After 28 years on the faculty, Madonna Hedinger is herself at the heart of a Wooster education. She is a Lawrence Stanley Professor of Medieval History, and she's here with two of her IS students.
Thank you, Marissa. I'm here today with Dora Mays, class of 2017, and Leanne Doe, a former IS student, class of 2012. And you all know that every single IS journey is unique. And yet, it really is a process that all of us at Wooster share, faculty, students, staff, and alumni. It, to me, is that IS experience that's at the heart of our culture, the heart of the Wooster community. Now, in the history department, we ask every student to really own their IS, to make it something personal to them. And so I'm going to ask Dora if you can tell us a little bit about your IS.
Of course. So I've always been interested in fashion and fashion history, and that seemed like a very appropriate topic to do my S on when it came time. So I began looking at women's business wear, and then I looked at the 1950s, and I still had this lingering question of what woman wore the first pants. So I Google imaged this question and found an image of the bloomer costume, and from there I continued researching Victorian fashion.
Now, Dora, when you were looking at Victorian fashion, you did a lot more than just Google images, right? Anybody could do that. You did the work of a real historian by going into the archives.
Yep, I went and explored the archives here at the college, and I read a lot of primary sources, specifically Ladies' Home Journal and Godey's Magazine.
So I have to tell you, you had me a little confused in the fall because you were doing this incredible original research with magazines that were over 100 years old, but you kept coming into my office and saying, is this real history? Is this important? Does this matter? So how did it click?
I physically put on a corset.
Ow.
I spent 2 hours in a corset at the costume shop here at the college. And the first hour is really nice. The corset's very slimming, and it gives you a bit of a confidence boost. But after an hour, you really start to feel pain in your back, and you're really not able to move in a corset. So by going through the archives, I really got to get into the minds of these women, and by wearing the corset, I got into their bodies.
Into their bodies. So how did that change your ideas about fashion and about history?
Well, fashion isn't just something you wear. It's really what you're telling the world about yourself, and it's also conveying messages about the expectations and the values and the culture of the society that you live in. So all of these historical perspectives that I've learned over this IS process, I'm going to take with me into a job at Ohio Light Opera this summer, and then potentially a career in fashion design. We'll see.
Okay. Well, speaking of careers, if I can turn to Leanne. Leanne, when I look back on your IS experience and I see what you're doing now, I see a kind of very intentional direction that's guided your path. And could you speak to us about your IS?
Absolutely. My IS examined how South Vietnamese civilians normalized the everyday violence and trauma of warfare during the Vietnam War. And I applied for and received Copeland funding to travel to Vietnam and conduct some oral history interviews. And this was a great opportunity because it not only enriched the research for my IS, but it fostered this lifelong love of exploring and seeking out other people's stories.
Well, and some of these stories were very personal for you as well.
It was, yeah. It was not only a work of oral history, but family history as well. I got to interview a lot of family members who are still living in Vietnam. And like Dora, it was you who encouraged me to pursue this kind of off the beaten track type of historical practice and really try to claim it as a legitimate form of academic inquiry.
Mm-hmm. And the next steps in that path in terms of your career?
Yeah, so after Wooster, I received a master's degree in museum studies at the University of California in Riverside. And after that, I moved home to Portland, where I now work at the Oregon Community Foundation. And this is a philanthropic institution that provides grants to organizations in the community.
Can you be a little more specific about how your IS work has translated into the work you do now?
Yeah, well, there's the methodology in oral history called shared authority that I think about a lot and try to apply it in my everyday work. And this method has a basic rule that states that historians don't give people a voice because these voices have always been there. It's been for lack of access and representation that we don't often hear from them. And I try to apply these skill sets that I learned from my IS to my work in philanthropy by trying to make sure that our grant-making process creates inclusive and equitable spaces for people to share their stories.
Thanks, Leanne. I think that's a good example of how we never really know where IS is going to lead us. That's certainly true in terms of the IS process when you're a student, but I think it's even more true after you leave Wooster and you start to shape your path through life. And I have to say that as a faculty member, IS has shaped my career. It's that working one-on-one with students, it's investing in that promise of each individual, one student at a time, that's kept me at Wooster.
Thank you so much, Professor Hettinger, Dora, and Leanne. Now, when we think about IS, we so often think of our experience as students, but there is another crucial component, the faculty. With me to talk about the culture of mentorship that IS breeds on campus are Rohini Singh, Assistant Professor of Communication, and Denise Bosdorf, Chair of the Communication Department. Can you tell me a little bit about the culture of mentorship on campus?
Well, I think the culture of mentorship at Wooster really stems in a large part from what we've been talking about here today, the IS process. And it seems to me, I think to both of us, that it's very much a team approach to mentoring.
Yeah, I would agree. You know, faculty are really important for the mentoring of students and the IS process itself, but really, students have a whole team of mentors all over campus. I mean, there are staff members in the Dean of Students office, in the Learning Center, the Writing Center, for example, coaches, even peers. In fact, at our annual Stoling ceremony a few years ago, we had a senior from Japan, and he honored his most important mentor, who was a janitor in his academic building, who he said encouraged him when he didn't think he could get the IS work done, and supported him when he was homesick.
Wow, that's incredible. And how would you say the culture of mentorship impacts relationships between faculty and staff?
Well, the faculty and staff mentor each other as well as much as they mentor the students because, you know, they help each other out. I, for example, am a little newer, just a little, to Wooster, and I have benefited every single day from my colleagues' advice and their mentorship. You know, they have sat me down and we have chatted over sandwiches about, you know, students, about tenure expectations. We've gotten a coffee and talked about advising. We've gotten more coffee and talked about grading. And then, so really perhaps the heart of a Wooster education and mentorship is not only IS, but caffeine and carbs as well. But even when food is not involved, people have been very kind. Nobody has balked when they see me approaching them with my intense list of questions about things. And I think because of that generosity and of that spirit of mentorship over here in Wooster, I have learned immensely from my colleagues.
Well, and I would add to that and just say that we learn from one another. Right? Because it's one of those things where people typically think of mentorship as this case where you have an older individual, or as I like to put it, a more mature individual, you know, who's getting this one-way process of sage advice that they deliver to the other. But actually, I have learned from Rohini, because just the other day, we were talking about your introductory course, and she was saying to me that she had gone through and found which students had done better on the second exam than on the first exam, and which ones had done worse. So she emailed them, and she said, what did you do differently? And they responded. And so she summarized all those results and sent them to the entire class as they prepared for the third exam, right? As soon as she told me about that, I said, Rohini, I love that idea. I'm going to steal it. I mean, borrow it. Yeah.
So I suppose you could say that the culture here of mentoring at Wooster is really one of community mentorship.
Yes, I would agree. And the mentoring really does take place all over the campus because mentoring is really at the heart of a Wooster education.
Thank you so much, Professor Bosdorf and Professor Singh. For more on today's celebration of IS, we sent our very own Aubrey McCoy to cover today's symposium events.
Thanks, Marissa. Yes, today was my first ever IS symposium, which was chaos, but it was good chaos. I knew I was smart coming to the College of Wooster, but boy, do I have some big shoes to fill. I've got 3 years to figure it out. But we did take some footage this morning, and so we've brought that here to share with you. A little birdie told me that it was going to be a big day for seniors, but boy, was it a big day for seniors. There's parents, families, friends, everybody's here supporting.
Theory versus reality, contract farming within developing country, or within Uganda. Oh, sorry, I can do that one more time. I changed it quite a few times. Theory versus reality, contract farming within Uganda.
Household risk aversion, analysis pre and post financial crisis.
Rebuilding a community, a consideration of the syncretic healing practices and the symbols at a healing center.
Tell me how long it's taken you to come up with your IS project.
So I've actually been working on my IS since the summer after junior year when I actually went to Ecuador to do research with the Kendall Reeves grant.
As I emotionally prepare myself, was there ever any breakdowns or moments where you just felt like this was impossible to finish?
Coming back from fall break and having to start the actual study, the actual research, to not just looking at the past literature and seeing what other people have done, but really getting started with my project was super daunting. But my advisor was really there for me, and it was an awesome experience.
We've reached yet another location. I've literally gotten my workout in for the day with all this walking, but I've experienced so many great things, and I have never seen so many seniors up this early in the morning. I haven't seen it all semester.
A Lens of Our Own, a feminist photo voice exploration of LGBTQ+ experience at Wooster.
For those with autism spectrum disorder.
Tell me what was one of the most exciting parts about IS?
So for me, it was really finding a way to combine my two disciplines. You think of political science and computer science, you don't really see them interacting too much in the wild per se, but finding a way that we could combine the two into one project and sort of better understand voting using this field of computer science was really exciting for me.
So we're now in another room. IS Symposium is literally everywhere. Not exactly what I expected as my first experience, but it's awesome.
#politics, an evaluation of political expression and efficacy of Twitter users during the 2016 general election.
Love, suffering, and revenge. That doesn't work. Let me try again. I'm so sorry. Love, suffering, and revenge. The rediscovery of the Middle Ages and 19th century German art, architecture, and literature, and the resulting influence on the rise of nationalism throughout the century. Tell me one of the hardest moments you experienced in doing IS.
So my IS was very personal to me because they're a collection of trans stories, and I'm a trans man. And so one of the hardest moments of my IS was just getting over the fact that I had a lot of emotional baggage coming to the table.
A Hindu temple in Kalamazoo, an ethnographic study of the recreation and preservation of Hindu American identity in the United States.
Negroid hermaphrodite to seated man, an in-depth analysis of modern and ancient ideas of race and ethnicity in the Cleveland Museum of Art.
Tell me a little bit about how exciting it was for you to complete and turn in your independent study.
It was definitely one of the milestones of my life, and I was completely ecstatic after staying up all night and just out of excitement and like turning it in with all my friends and were there to cheer me on.
So if there's anything I've learned about IS today, this morning, it was that I should have started memorizing my title about a week ago. So we've talked about and heard a lot about independent study, but we haven't really talked much about the resources available to us over the course of our 4 years here. And I believe that one of those resources is APEX. Marissa?
Thanks, Aubrey. I'm here with Brenda Kaur, fellow senior, who throughout her 4 years at Wooster has made full use of APEX, the Advising, Planning, and Experiential Learning Center. Brenda, how did you first come to APEX?
Yeah, so I first learned about APEX during my freshman year, just as everyone else. And I utilized APEX for resource, for time management help for my classes, and resume building. But honestly, along the way, I kind of got lost at Wooster, and I think APEX did a phenomenal job in helping me navigate my path during my 4 years here.
How so?
Well, I did the APEX fellowships, so I basically received funding and had an opportunity to intern at a nonprofit organization called Usher's New Look. And just within 3 months of interning there, I have learned so much, I gained so much knowledge, I met so many people, and it was just a mind-blowing experience for me because I figured out what I wanted to do as well as what I didn't want it to do. Right. So that was pretty neat, and I think, and I'm still an active member of Usher's New Look today, so that just speaks volume of how much work experience that I've had my junior and my senior year with them. So thank you, APEX. I'm very appreciative, and plus I got to work with Usher himself and talk to him about my lifelong goals, so that was pretty cool too.
That's awesome. Wow.
Yes.
And that was a fellowship experience.
Yes.
But I understand you did the off-campus study program as well.
Yeah, so through APEX, I was able to study abroad in Spain, which it was an indescribable experience for me. I definitely learned a lot, and I got to really immerse myself in their culture, which I kind of was gravitated towards, and it had an imprint on my IS topic, which is about telenovela format. And I actually love Spain so much that I'm actually going back there in the fall as a Fulbright scholar to teach English.
Wow, congratulations.
Thank you.
That seems like a perfect bridge back to you, Aubrey, and the Dean of APEX, Jenny Griffin.
Thanks, Marissa. Dean Griffin, tell us about how so many programs can fit under just one roof.
So APEX offers 7 different offices under one roof in the Flo K. Galt Library. It's there that we really help students integrate their academic, personal, and professional goals. It's our view that we should be educating the whole person. So we help to get students to acquire the tools that they'll need to connect with the world, to plan lives after Wooster, and to live lives of meaning.
And how and why is APEX at the center of Wooster's Promise?
So Wooster's Promise is all about a focus on student success, which helps APEX do the work that we do. Our statistics show that about 80% of all students on Wooster's campus have been in APEX at some point for a service or a program last year. But we have more ambitious goals. We would love to see 100% of students come into APEX. And so, one of the things that we like to do is, we like Brenda's experience. We want to fund students to be able to go on these APEX fellowships. We can fund about 60 a summer. We'd love to fund more opportunities for students.
So I know as a first year here at the college, I've had a ton of exposure to all of the opportunities offered through APEX. Actually working closely with APEX representatives through my first year seminar, I became very familiar with some of the opportunities, and one of them that I jumped at right away was City Trek.
So the City Trek program is a great program. It's a break program. Students can go during their fall break or their spring break, and we take them to cities across the United States. They get to meet people in the industries there, and they also get to network with the alumni. So it's a great experience. But the key thing I want you all to know is that our students get to experience some of these programs by things that are led by faculty as well as APEX staff. And so there are opportunities for faculty to be involved in these programs as well. And a great example of that is that Professor Hettinger is getting ready to take a group of students to a Wooster Summer in Tuscany in just a few weeks.
If you have any opening spots,
we want to go.
I'm here for you. I'm here. But seriously, Wooster's Promise will allow for these programs to grow.
Absolutely. So this campaign allows for an expansion for students, faculty, and staff to be involved in APEX programming. We are so lucky in APEX because our facility and many of our programs have already been supported by really generous philanthropy from alumni, from friends, and from families of Wooster. One of the prime examples of this is the Long Break Commons. It was filled with students today, and that is really in part because Bill Longbreak donated very generously and enabled that expansion. So we're very thankful for that. What we want you all to know is that by including APEX in Wooster's Promise, you're enabling our students and the college to be even more successful.
Well, thank you so much for sharing, Dean Griffin and Brenda. Another way in which Wooster's Promise will allow for us to grow here at the college is through the Ruth W. Williams Hall of Life Science. Marissa, I believe that you found Professor Dean Fraga in the audience.
That's right, I'm here with Professor Fraga. Wow, look at that, found you so easily.
Just hanging out.
So Professor Fraga does hold the Danforth Professorship of Biology, and he is the department chair for biochemistry and molecular biology. So what is distinctive about Wooster's approach to the life sciences?
If I had to point to one thing that I thought was most distinctive, I would say it's our use of the research as pedagogy. And using that approach, research as pedagogy, underpins our independent study. And what I mean by that is that we use research as both a hook and a tool to engage students into learning. And since it is research, there's always the opportunity that they'll find new knowledge or create new knowledge that they can add to help us better understand the world.
And how does research as pedagogy work in the life sciences?
Funny you should ask. Under the cover of night, I was able to add a few slides. So I'm going to plant myself here and talk to the Facebook audience for just a moment. They've asked that I stay tethered to this spot, which is against all my instincts. And if I should drift out of the screen, don't panic. I will come back. But if I drift out of the screen and there's a ka-thunk, you can worry a little bit. Hopefully I'll be okay. What I'd like to do is start by going back to our program, because I'm going to link it up to the infrastructure. I think the really remarkable thing about our approach using research as pedagogy and independent study is it allows us to meet students where they are and then take them as far as their imagination and skills will take them. And this is a truly remarkable thing about this program. And it reflects that we have the faculty and the staff and the mission to do it. What we have also been doing is investing in our infrastructure. And if I can have the next slide. The infrastructure is the Ruth Williams Hall of Life Science, and this building is kind of a synthesis of curriculum and concrete. And when I say that, what I mean is that we didn't build anything. We didn't put anything down until we'd had a nice conversation, a nice long conversation. I'll tell you how long it was. To come to an agreement about what we're going to do there. How are we going to implement our program? What does it mean to have research as pedagogy? How do we implement that? And then we started to think about and imagine the spaces that would be in there. Through this building, this is how we think we can fulfill the Wooster promise for each and every student. And what I'd like to do in the next 2 slides is show you a little bit of that through some floor plans. So what you see here is the first floor, which is my favorite floor, by the way, because that's where I'm located. So it's a great floor. And one of the central architectural features in this floor is this concourse that you see stretching across the middle. Now, it's both important architecturally because it allows a lot of light to penetrate deep into the building. It's also a way by which we can show science because you have a lot of glass and so you can see science being done. But it's also symbolically important because it connects us with our neighbors, which is the chemistry department. So this concourse will stretch from Severance Chemistry all the way to Williams Hall. And the chemists have been one of our strongest collaborators. We've collaborated with them quite a bit, both pedagogically and research. And we think that this was a nice, appropriate symbol. The second thing that I want to point out is what we call the think tanks, which are circled here. Now, these think tanks, a lot of thought went into them to try to think about how we're going to implement this program, Research as Pedagogy, where we're toggling back and forth between what we do in the classroom and what we do in the lab. And we think these think tanks help us do that. On the next slide, what I'd like to do is show you how that might manifest itself. So you have to imagine a professor, say this one, finishing up his research, and of course it's research, so it's never truly done. There's always more questions you can ask. And if it was a good project, that professor can deconstruct that research and break it down into modules that he can use educationally. And that begins in the classroom, which is shown in yellow here. And we can engage the students with this in small groups where they'll engage in that research, develop hypotheses. And once we've developed a set of hypotheses, we can migrate to the classroom lab, which is shown in green. And in the classroom lab, they can test those hypotheses. And we can do that, multiple experiments, multiple students. Eventually, it will come to an end. And since it's research, it's never truly ended. There's still more questions you can ask. And we hope that some of those students will be inspired by that work, and they'll want to ask those questions. They'll want to answer some of those questions. And fortunately, Wooster has a great program for doing that. And the programs I'm speaking of are some of the sophomore research programs, the summer research programs, and of course, senior IS. Through those programs, the faculty will work in the research space with the students, which we're calling the Student-Faculty Collaborative Research Space. And they're truly collaborative in the sense that we have multiple faculty and student groups in there. And these groups will obviously get to collaborate because they're by proximity. Sometimes they'll be collaborating on an actual experiment. Now, this space is going to be used mostly by the seniors, of course, but we also have other researchers that'll be in there. But we also added an additional feature, I think, that really underscores the fact that senior IS is our capstone experience. And we've put in these student carols, which are shown in orange, and these are the student write-up spaces. And it's in these spaces that the students are going to fill in their notebooks and they're going to construct drafts of their theses. And eventually, hard as it is to believe for some seniors, IS does end at some point. But of course, it's research, and so it never truly ends. And so the faculty takes that research and will deconstruct it once again and bring it back into the classroom to start the cycle again. So we have the next slide. So this shows you a scene from the student carols looking into the research space. And it allows me to just accentuate that this building embodies Wooster's promise. And together with the faculty and the staff, I think it allows us to meet students where they are and take them as far as their imagination and talents will take them. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Saunders. Thank you so much. So far, we've heard from the departments of History, Communication, and the Life Sciences. Now, it's my particular pleasure to introduce fellow senior and violinist, Kimberly McDonough. Wow. Wow. Wow, that was incredible. Thank you so much, Kimberly, for sharing that. That was the opening to the Sibelius Violin Concerto, followed by Kimberly's original song, Haunted, which you can find on YouTube. Now, who here is a current or former Wooster student? Can I see a show of hands? Okay, and comment online with your graduation year too. And keep your hands raised if at any point you receive financial aid from the school. Incredible. So many of us are here because of Wooster's commitment to access for all. As a first-generation college student myself, Wooster was my top choice, but it came down to finances, and the financial aid department made sure that Wooster was within reach for me. Aubrey?
Hi, Marissa. I'm here with Tom Boardman, an alumnus of the College of Wooster who graduated in 1970 and who was also the beneficiary of student financial aid and who is now dedicated to ensuring that future generations of Fighting Scots have the same financial access.
Thanks for having me, Aubrey.
Of course, Tom. Tell us a little bit about your time here at Wooster.
Aubrey, I came to Worcester from a single-parent home. My mother was a waitress, and she worked in a luncheonette where a quarter was a big tip. I had 2 older sisters, both of whom went to work to help save and support the family. I got to go to college. Worcester was an option for me only because of a generous financial aid package that included an endowed scholarship that had been made by a family previous to my arrival on campus. As a result of that scholarship, the paper bag with the nickels, dimes, and quarters, my mother's tips that she sent me to college with, were enough to get me through until I could get a job and start making bologna sandwiches to earn a little extra money. And it led to a fabulous 4 years at Wooster for me. And I met my wife here, 45 years. I made friends for life here. And I laid the foundation to become what I like to call a lifelong learner, and also ultimately to pursue a career in the law. Now, this wouldn't have been possible without that financial aid package. I needed every dollar I could get. And it was only through the generosity and philanthropy of those who preceded me on campus that I was able to achieve that Worcester education. So I am fully committed to passing that on. My family has committed to the financial aid aspect, the student financial aid aspect of the promise. And we hope that we can provide access, regardless of the financial capability of any student, to a student to come to Worcester and have that same 4-year experience that we had. And that's why we fully support that focus on student financial aid.
Thank you so much for sharing your story with us.
You're welcome.
There are so many memories of what makes Wooster Wooster, and we've been loving what we've been seeing online. We'd love to keep hearing what you have to share. But first, I think, Aubrey, you found someone in the audience who makes Wooster Wooster.
I have indeed. I am here with Senior Associate Dean of Students, Carolyn Buxton. Dean Buxton, tell us about how the Wooster Fund enhances student life on campus.
Sure. At Wooster, we believe that education is for all, and access to education is paramount. We live this belief through our everyday endeavors, and they're like hallmarks. And one of our greatest hallmarks is the IS program. But also, in other ways, there are less obvious hallmarks. Take, for instance, the Long Break Student Wellness Center. This center, health center, is there for every student on campus. We are very proud of the fact that almost 100% of our student population will use the Wellness Center while they are at the College of Worcester. Having a facility like the Wellness Center on campus makes it possible for many, many students to stay here when they have urgent medical needs. It's a necessity in the 21st century. It's vital to our mission. It is part of what makes Worcester Worcester. Like so many other aspects of student life and life in general on campus here at Worcester, we have other opportunities for students. Our well-appointed residence halls, our special student luncheons, and the thought-provoking faculty colloquia. These are things that are made possible by annual giving to the Wooster Fund.
Dean Buxton, thank you so much for sharing. Marissa, back to you to share some memories from our audience.
That's right, Aubrey. We've been seeing some amazing responses online. And here with me to talk about them is Matt Galata, Director of Annual Giving. Hi, Matt. All right. So one of the main themes that we were seeing back there in the comments is the different student organizations that people have been part of during their time here or are part of now. How does the Wooster Fund enable that?
Well, student organizations are an essential part of the Wooster experience. You know, it's more than just fun. It's a training ground for our leaders of tomorrow to pursue their passion. Take, for example, someone 15 years ago who volunteered for Habitat for Humanity and learned about service and philanthropy and turned it into a career as the director of annual giving in his alma mater. Yeah. So by providing those types of experiences and learning outside of the classroom, giving to the Wooster Fund helps make Wooster, Wooster.
Incredible. And we're also seeing a lot about the grounds and how beautiful this place is that I know I love to call home. So, Wooster Fund?
Absolutely. You know, the campus is more than just a pretty face. It's our physical location, but it's also our spiritual center. Giving to the Wooster Fund makes sure that every time someone walks through Calc Arch, that the Oak Grove is there to greet them and welcome them home. And that kind of continual attention to detail about our surroundings helps make Wooster, Wooster.
Incredible. And lastly, a lot that I'm seeing has to do with the faculty, the wonderful professors we have here. The IS process is nothing without the mentorship that comes with it. So how does the Wooster Fund help with that?
Well, excellence is not a singular goal. It's a continual process. And by giving to the Wooster Fund, you're enabling our faculty and staff to go to conferences, to talk to peers in their disciplines, and then bring it back to our students to be on the leading edge of teaching. And that continual chase for education and for excellence is what makes Wooster, Wooster.
Incredible. Thank you so much, Matt. Now, please join me in welcoming to the stage the Wooster's Promise Campaign Chair, Blake Moore.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, I don't know about you, but this evening we've heard some truly amazing stories about the work that's being done by our faculty, by our students, and by our staff together. In fact, I would use the word inspirational as it relates to many of the things we've seen tonight. That is made possible in large part by the generosity of alumni, parents, and other friends of the college. It just wouldn't happen without that generosity. And that is why, this evening, we are publicly launching Wooster's Promise, the campaign for our future. And indeed, you should think about it as the campaign for our future. It's the next 150 years. This is where we start laying the foundation for the next 150 years of the College of Wooster and the stories that you've heard about tonight to make sure they continue to happen. As true fighting Scots, we've set ourselves a rather audacious goal of $165 million by the time this campaign is completed in about 15 months. Now, thanks to the generosity and the hard work of many already in the quiet phase, we've surpassed the $150 million mark. So a round of applause to everybody who's already contributed. However, as I constantly remind our Board of Trustees and our campaign leadership team and the advancement team, a strong finish is what truly makes a campaign. And in the next 15 months, we have much work to do, and we will be hard at it, and we will be led in that effort by none other than our new president, Sarah Bolton, who I would like to call to the stage.
So as we've heard this evening, the College of Wooster is remarkable. Here, students take part in an education that is unmatched anywhere in the world. And with this campaign, we reinvest in the powerful promise that Wooster has made for generations, the promise that continues to change lives. We promise a superb and far-reaching education which prepares students for lives of consequence, a closely mentored education with which every student learns deeply and also creates something new. and an education which welcomes every student to the community of learners, investing in each student's promise on equal terms. With this campaign, we will realize that historic promise in new ways, ones that will be crucial for students in the century to come. Through a Wooster education, they will become ethical and inclusive leaders with global experience and perspective, solvers of problems that matter, and contributors to progress on the world's most pressing and complex issues. Wooster's Promise is a campaign for the future of our college and for the students we will serve. But Wooster's Promise is also about you. It's about your engagement in the life of our college. Your support with your time and your talent and your philanthropy is what makes Wooster possible. That collective investment from the family of Scotts is crucial. It's that investment that enables our students to have the experiences as powerful as the ones you have heard about today. And it's that investment that ensures that the college keeps its promise to every student tomorrow and for the generations to come. We welcome you to be an active part of this wonderful Scott family. You can volunteer wherever you are to host events, provide internships and employment opportunities for our students, help identify, recruit, and select the next class of Scotts, or become an online ambassador. Lend your voice to one of our affinity groups, our reunion committees, or our alumni board, and return to campus to share your insights at reunions or with our students through Apex. This is your opportunity to stand up and be counted in supporting our students and our future. And you already know now what the Wooster's Promise campaign is all about.
It's about independent study,
mentorship, and investing in the heart of a Wooster education.
It's about investing in experiential education through opportunities like Apex.
It's about investing in the future of life science.
It's about investing in student financial aid.
It's about keeping Wooster Wooster by making annual contributions to the Capital Fund.
And it's about coming together to support Wooster's future. So as we come to the end of our program this evening, I'd like to thank all of you who have so generously already supported the college and brought us to this point. And I'd also like to thank everyone who has been part of this celebration here on the stage of the Friedlander Theater in wonderful Wooster, Ohio, as well as online around the world. We invite all of you to be a part of moving Wooster forward to support the generation of Scotts to come. Join us.
you're invited outside to the tent for an opening night celebration.